Hey guys, so I want to discuss really quick the idea of well, not the idea, but the reality of terrorism, especially after the London attacks. So let me tell you the one way that you can defeat it. Okay, now a lot of liberals, a lot of people on the left are hypocrites because they say things, but they don't have the energy to back them up. So meaning they say what they say sounds good, but in reality they're not exhibiting it. Like, oh, let's all love one another. And love will stop. Love, trumps hate or whatever. Like love trumped hate or whatever. Yes, love is the answer, right? But saying love and being love is very different. So you can't go around and be like, let's love one another, blah blah blah. Because if you have this big human ego and this big conditioned personality, sorry, you have lots of trauma, lots of emotions still stored in me. I know I do. Most everyone here in the world does. The very few people who don't have done a lot of work on themselves, and thank God, because they are balancing the people. The higher energy people balance the lower energy people. So it tends to be that people in poverty and people who commit crime tend to have low energy, meaning they're not tired, it's just that they're vibrating at a low pace where they feel disconnected from God. Okay, it's that simple. People who feel good and connected and inspired have better energy. High energy does not mean you're jittery, you're excited. That's not high energy, okay? As much as people tell you. But high energy is like a higher level of consciousness where you feel connected and you're at peace. Nothing can fuck with you. And the world, the most hateful person can't come into your field. And if they were hateful, they won't be hateful when they're looking at you and they're in your presence. Or they'll have a breakdown before they get to you because they can't handle, if they resist their old trauma emerging as they get into your energy field, their old trauma will be activated and they'll either react, run away from you, or they will like cry and release it in front of you. So in a way, we are our own little worlds and our own energy fields. So if you have a high energy field, people, you are protected from terrorism, from violence, you're protected from poverty, all sorts of stuff, okay? Now, that sounds wrong and mean to say that people are trapped in their situations, but they are, including me. And I'm not perfect. Trust me, I still have a lot of releasing to do. That's why I'm doing that's why I'm, doing extremely low carb, doing fasting, doing no FAP, doing affirmations. So I will get there. And that's how I will defeat terrorism, because when there's no hatred and shame stored in my energy field, then I will like counterbalance probably tens of thousands of people with bad energy. Okay? And this is true for a lot of people, especially people who've had illness in their lives. Now, the truth is that a lot of, when you're in the egoic mode, you see differences of race and ethnicity and gender. And I'm not, and on some level, they're real. On some level, people prefer to be with their own. And, but people aren't honest about it due to political correctness and trying to take the higher road, So, I mean, everyone is racist to some degree, It's true. They just won't admit it because it's deemed such a horrible characteristic. That's why everyone has to virtue signal and show how moral they are. But the issue is not to tell people how moral you are. It's to exhibit a connection to God and the higher energy. It's to exhibit a peaceful energy. That's why there's a lot of behaviors and aesthetic things around supposed like classical music and certain like an upper class cultural events do inspire higher energy. It doesn't mean you're higher energy to enjoy them. It just means that they do inspire higher energy. And usually people lower energy hate those things. So it's like, you're not going to get a bunch of like gangbangers, listening to classical music. They hate it because it's like, it just triggers them. They just can't be around it because it does elicit a higher frequency. And so if you're in a bad mood, you just cannot be around. It just annoys the shit out of you to be around happy people. I mean, it's obvious. You hate people. You hate people who are happier than you. And so, you know, you really, and you know, it seems like you get people when if you hate people so much, you could only inflict violence on people with who have that same kind of repressed negative energy in them. Otherwise, the universe cannot bring you together. What else? Sorry, my nose fucking itches. So okay, so if you're like a terrorist, a terrorist means you're like basically have a lot of shame and you project it as hate. So if I have lots of shame, I will find things to hate, like or be resentful about. Usually people are more resentful. The scary people are the people who are actually have hate because that's actionable. So it's like you hate and you're like you want to kill someone. Like that's shame deep inside you. It's not guilt. It's maybe some fear and a lot of shame. And the people who are Muslim terrorists, I almost would argue across the board have some sort of serious emotional trauma. Like a lot of these cultures, breed little boys and like fuck them when they're little. This is I don't know, but I haven't read into all the cultural aspects of the Islamic world, but it's fairly common. Child abuse is like it's not even looked upon as a negative. It's just like what happens. So you have a lot of people, who are sexually assault, babies and children who were most of the boys, a lot of boys actually sexually assaulted. And so that's shame is the worst thing you can do to a child, And what they do then is they live with the shame and they project it outwards as hate. So it's like if you have a religion that gives you an excuse to act out on that hate instead of actually feel the shame and process it, which there's nothing for them. There's nothing in their culture that allows for them to do that, unless there's like a metaphysical aspect of Islam. I think the Sufis, but and then American culture and European culture aren't quite there yet. We don't have the ability to help heal people's energy fields in like a systematic way. Like there's no like people go to the doctor and get prescribed pills, but there's no one like, hey, you know what? You seem really hateful and negative. We're gonna clear up your energy. Now, hippies and stupid, energy healers supposedly do this, but most of them are ineffective. There's no system in place. It's not mainstream in the culture. So a lot of people who are suffering, especially when, like, if you're coming from another culture into the, Western world for, free stuff, which who wouldn't? And there's nowhere for you to fit. You go in with your faith, and if you are a manipulative egomaniac or egotistical person, you find people, you take your hate and your resentment of the other, which would be white people or British people or the French, and you find liberals who are apologetic and have low energy fields and have their own shame. You find the weak people of the Muslim societies and the Muslims that are, susceptible, that are also have hate, but you're the one who leads them. You're the one who manipulates them. You're the one who says, you know what? Like, look at this, the Quran says, and you fuck with them, and you basically get them to act out, physically. And so, at first, it's like sporadic, but I mean, the more and more, we really have two choices as a society, and I'll tell you what they are. When you're liberal and open-minded and you're preaching things but you don't practice them, like you're preaching love or you're preaching diversity, preaching love but you don't feel love, and you're preaching diversity but you live in an all-white neighborhood. So you're not congruent. You don't have integrity. You're fucking fake. And when liberals go around trying to do feel-good things, they create fucking chaos and shit. And things don't go well because they're not lined up energetically with what they're saying. And so when conservatives say, we need to profile, or we shouldn't have Muslims here, blah blah. I mean, at least they're honest. Do you know what I'm saying? They're like an integrity. Like, it might not be the most enlightened thing to do, but at least conservatives are, they recognize we're different. We're, you're the other, and we need to separate, or we don't want you here, or we want to profile you and make sure you're not going to do anything crazy. Where liberals actually invite violence because they're like, oh yeah, come on in, like blah, blah, blah. Like they say one thing, but they're not doing it. You could at least respect someone who says, you know what, like I don't like Muslims, I don't want them here. Like, does that make me a horrible person? I don't know. Not me personally, hopefully, but I just like if a person believes that, at least someone's like, a Muslim could say, hey, you know what, you don't like me, I don't like you, like, and fuck, at least you can almost respect someone who's fucking brutal with their opinion versus going, oh, yeah, we want to help you and give you all this, we want to give you welfare and, treat you like you guys are pathetic. And then, you ignore the Muslim community, you go off into your little liberal fantasy land and you hang out with, all your little beliefs that sound good and feel good but aren't helping people. So then who's stuck with a bunch of people who aren't fitting in, who feel alienated, the liberals won't even hang out with the Muslims because they're so busy hanging out with other white liberals, talking about how superior they are morally. Or like, now it's like these Muslims are in this community where they're not particularly welcomed, but people are telling them they're welcomed. But they don't feel welcomed at all, even though people are throwing money at them and they're on welfare and shit. So it's like, of course these Muslims are going to be fucking alienated. They're going to be in their ghettos or whatever. It's like a Muslim would rather be like, hey, you don't want us here? You know what? Fine. We actually don't want to be here. It's like, I mean, when you're like honest with someone, it's like fucking refreshing. And that's the problem. But that's why virtue signaling is such bullshit. When I've been in a bad mood, I've blamed and projected my anger onto people and groups of people. I mean, who the fuck doesn't? Everyone has prejudices and makes judgments, and everyone's racist too. I mean, to some degree. Some more than others. Everyone has preferences. So I guess the whole idea is if you want to stop terrorism, what you really have to do is work on your own energy, because violence can't penetrate a loving energy field. No one can punch through a person who truly feels love and connected and doesn't have hidden shame, and he feels vibrant and like just happy. An angry person, a miserable person, a hateful person, a person with a knife, they can't penetrate into that other loving person's reality. The universe separates you. And if they bring you together, then someone will intervene. You won't be a victim of some crime if you're a loving person. It just doesn't happen that way. Because for someone to commit a crime, they have to have a strong negative feeling. No one can be loving and then stab you while being loving, because once you have the intention to thrust forward in a way that's low energy, if there's a higher energy field around you, it'll neutralize it. I mean, it's like physics. So anyway, I don't know if you guys followed me at all or not. I don't really give a shit. I kind of like talking about this. So there was a video of a couple of guys in Asia who are very they're pretty high up there in their energy. But what they do is they have like these like disciples, which are mostly white guys, and maybe a few other Asians. And he goes, attack me. Please try to fucking beat the shit out of me. So people chase after him. They're like trying to beat the shit out of him. The guy stands there and just like with the hand, sends out just like a really calm, like present signal. And those people literally like bounce off that motherfucker. Like not even off his body, they bounce off his field even before they get to it. So it's like he's impenetrable. And if more people worked on their own anger issues, their own shame, raised their consciousness, you'd have more and more fields of energy, positive energy, kind of connecting together, like the sides of states. Do you know what I'm saying? So if someone's really positive energy and a few other people with positive energy, their fields would be so large that no hate, no negativity, no shame or guilt or fear can enter those areas. It's pretty fucking crazy. And you could only enter those areas if you're willing to release the negative, or at least repress it. I don't know, because some people like get really nervous around high energy people, high consciousness people, because their old negativity is coming up to the surface, because that high energy is just saying, come to the surface. If you have trapped emotions stuck in your field, we want those to release out of your field so you could match our high energy. I mean, imagine a few people with high energy living in like one geographic location. Like crime would literally like just stop because no one could act out negatively. I mean, it's that simple. So no one, under Allah or whoever, like their name, and no one could act violently. Now, someone might have a bunch of fucking weapons, but no one could actually like throw a punch or hurt, like squeeze their hand over your neck. I mean, it sounds just like you can't do that in a high energy field. You can't act violently. And the only way that Britain is going to be saved, or Europe could be saved, is enough people who live there, including the Muslims, which I hate to say it, but I don't mean to be a jerk, but I hope that some of them release old trauma and then reform their religion, towards more loving, and getting rid of this extremist stuff. But if like 3 or 4 people make significant spiritual progress in the next 5 years or in the next year, that could really counterbalance a lot of the hate that moved in, or a lot of the low energy immigrants. And I'm not saying all immigrants are low energy, but honestly, I mean, the last waves of immigrants historically, there's always waves of immigrants that come in, the first wave, second wave, third wave to America or Europe, and it's always like the last waves are always lowest energy. And that includes, the same thing happened with white people in America. There was a third or fourth wave coming from the Scottish Highlands and northern Europe, England, and little parts of Ireland they were just really nasty, a lot of nasty people, and they settled in Appalachia, and that's why even today they settled there in the 1700s, late 1700s, early 1800s, and they were kind of like the last Northwest European wave of immigration to America. And even today, to this day, they pass down that negative resentment, that low energy from parent to child. And the only way that it can break is if one, person gives up their conditioning and, practices spiritual advancement, like fasting, practicing gratitude all the time, practicing self-love, no FAP, no masturbating, a lot of self-discipline, a lot of personal responsibility. So that's my spiel, guys. I don't really edit these videos. I don't really give a fuck that much about making them pretty. I put more energy into kind of trying to feel good and trying to raise my own consciousness so I could have a dream life. And trust me, I'll be documenting that shit. So I love you, and talk to you later. Bye.